Welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sky, and I'm going to be looking at each class in depth for Diablo 4 and answering a very simple question. Is it for you? And in today's video, we have the Rogue. We're going to be going over the strengths of the Rogue and what makes them strong overall, their class-specific mechanic, skills and abilities, as well as showing animations for some of them, their super powerful ultimate skills in action, legendary aspects that we have released to us at the moment, and finally wrapping it all up with a quick summary of the class overall. Hopefully by doing so, we can steer you in the right direction to selecting a class that truly resonates with you. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, we are also doing a giveaway for a free copy of Diablo 4, so to enter yourself, all you have to do is be subscribed and follow the link in the description below. The Rogue is an adaptable, agile warrior who can specialize in ranged or close-quarter combat. They can best any foe with their imbued weapons, perform powerful combo attacks, and can augment their arsenal with deadly poisons and shadow magic to slay hordes of demons. Shadow Arts allows them to move freely between enemy lines, and their augmented weapons and combos can deal with all types of enemies. Starting things off with the strengths of the Rogue. They deal very high damage. The only thing slowing them down is actually themselves with energy regeneration, stopping them from using hard-hitting abilities. They're very mobile with all their movement abilities being on very short cooldowns, and they have a ton of passives to increase their base movement speed as well. Rogue is also a very versatile class, having tons of crowd control with freezes and stuns, as well as their smoke grenade skill, and they can combine various attacks for melee and range damage. The Rogue has the option to choose one out of 3 specializations. These can be swapped freely at any time and open up further build customization options. 3 options are combo points. Your basic skills now generate combo points. Certain skills consume the combo points for additional effects like increased movement speed and damage percent. The next one is inner sight. You attack marked enemies to fill up your inner sight gauge, and when it's full, gain unlimited energy for 4 seconds. One of your enemies will be marked randomly by a purple eye icon, and larger hits proceed to fill the bar faster. After it procs, you're instantly shot up to full energy, which can be incredibly powerful in the late game as your character gets stronger. And the last one is preparation. Now, we haven't even gotten the full information about this yet, but if we have anything to go from the in-game achievement, which is Rogue Preparation, use your ultimate 3 times in 60 seconds as a Rogue, it's more than likely that this might revolve around cooldown resetting of your ultimate ability. Every class has basic skills, defensive skills, and ultimate skills. The Rogue has some unique skills that only they possess, and these are Agility, Subterfuge, and Imbuement skills. Rogue's basic skills are used to generate the resource used to activate their shadow skills. Which ability you are allowed to use is determined based on which weapon type you have currently out. These basic skills are Puncture, Heartseeker, Forceful Arrow, Invigorating Strike, and Blade Shift. Moving on to core skills, they cost energy and, like basic skills, give off a different effect based on the weapon type you have out. There are 5 different types of core skills that you can use. The first one is Barrage, where you unleash a barrage of 5 arrows that expand outwards, dealing damage with each arrow hit. Rapid Fire, which rapidly shoots 5 arrows. Piercing Arrow, which fires an arrow and pierces all enemies in front of you in a line. Flurry, which you unleash a flurry of stabs and slashes in front of you with your blades. Twisting Blades, which impale an enemy with your blades and increase the damage they take while impaled. You start to notice that there is a trend of hybrid type damage, whether it be from melee or ranged as you play a Rogue. And it gets even crazier as you go further on down the line. Rogues get access to mobile agility skills, but they do have cooldowns, so timing is definitely crucial to the success of their use. These abilities are Shadow Step, where you quickly move through the shadows, stabbing your victim from behind and gaining movement speed. Next up, you have Dash, where you dash forward and slash enemies for 47% damage. And lastly, you have Caltrap, where you leap backward and throw caltrops on the ground, slowing enemies that walk through them. Moving on to our next set of skills, Subterfuge skills are the Rogue's version of more defensive abilities. The skills we know of so far are Concealment, where you vanish from sight immediately and you gain stealth for 4 seconds. Dark Shroud, where you surround yourself with up to 5 protected shadows, gaining 8% damage reduction per active shadow. Next up, you have Smoke Grenade, where you throw a smoking concoction at enemies that dazes them for 4 seconds. And finally, Poison Trap, where you place a trap that when it activates, it applies 435% poison damage over 9 seconds to all enemies in the area. Moving on to our next set of skills is the Imbuement skills. Rogue's Imbuement skills are unique to them and amplify your next 2 imbuable skills to have additional effects attached to them depending on the imbuement type you have active. There are 3 different imbuement types, which are Shadow Imbuement, which your next 2 imbuable skills deal shadow damage and infect enemies so they explode up to 40% damage on death. Cold Imbuement, where your next 2 imbuable skills deal cold damage and chill enemies for up to 50%. And lastly, Poison Imbuement. Your next 2 imbuable skills deal poison damage and apply up to 105% poisoning damage over 5 seconds. And lastly, everyone's favorite, we have the ultimate skills. These are extremely powerful. starting off with Rain of Arrows, which makes arrows rain down over a large area 2 times, and each wave deals a massive damage. Next up, you have Death Trap, where you place a trap that arms after 1.25 seconds, and it activates when an enemy moves within range, dealing massive damage to enemies in the area. And lastly, you have Shadow Clone, which you summon a clone where your shadow mimics all of your actions for 15 seconds, dealing reduced damage though. And next up, we have a first look at some of the rogue's legendary aspects, and some of them can be pretty familiar as we have seen them in the past. But remember, ladies and gentlemen, each power has to be unlocked by completing a specific dungeon once, and always comes with their minimum value if they have the dynamic value. Starting things off with defensive, you have Cheats Aspect. You take 15% less damage from crowd-controlled enemies, and whenever a crowd-control enemy deals direct damage to you, you gain 15% movement speed for 2 seconds. Next up, you have Enshrouding Aspect, where you gain a Dark Shroud every 3 seconds when standing still. Each Dark Shroud shadow grants you 2% increased damage reduction as well. After that, we have Aspect of Siphon Protection, where a lucky hit damaging a vulnerable enemy with a core skill has a 20% chance to grant a barrier for 5 seconds that absorbs a certain amount of damage. And lastly, you have Aspect of Uncanny Resilience. Whenever you trigger a lucky hit, gain 5% increased damage reduction for 5 seconds up to a maximum value. Moving on to offensive, where the rogue has a ton. You starting off with Aspect of Arrow Storms. With a lucky hit, your range skills have up to a 10% chance to create an arrow storm at the target's present location, dealing damage over 3 seconds, and you can also have 5 active arrow storms at the same time. Next up, you have Blast Trapper's Aspect. Dealing direct damage to enemies affected by your trap skills have up to a 30% chance to make them vulnerable for 3 seconds. After that, you have Aspect of Branching Volleys, where your barrage arrows has a 15% chance to split into 2 arrows whenever they ricochet. Next up, you have Aspect of Corruption, where your imbuement skills effect have 20% increased potency against vulnerable enemies. Moving along, we have Aspect of Encircling Blades, where Flurry damages enemies in a circle around you and deals 8% increased damage. After that, you have Opportunist Aspect. When you break concealment, you drop a cluster of stun grenades around you, dealing physical damage and stunning enemies for 0.25 seconds. Next up, you have Shadow Slicer Aspect. When you cast Dash, a Shadow Clone is spawned at your location that also casts Dash, dealing 25% of the base damage. Next up, you have Aspect of Sleeting Imbuements. Your Rain of Arrows is always affected by all imbuement skills at once. Next up, you have Trickster's Aspect, where Caltrips also throws a cluster of stun grenades that explode and deal physical damage as well as stunning enemies for 0.25 seconds. After that, you have Aspect of Unstable Imbuements. Casting a skill that is imbued creates an explosion around you, dealing a certain amount of damage from that imbuement type. After that, you have Vengeful Aspect, where lucky hit making an enemy vulnerable has a 30% chance to grant 3% increased critical strike chance for 3 seconds up to 9%. Next up, you have Aspect of Volatile Blades, where twisting blades causes an explosion when they return to you, dealing damage based on the distance traveled. And lastly, you have Aspect of the Volatile Shadows. When a Dark Shroud shadow would be removed, it explodes, dealing damage around you. Next up, we have Resource. We have Energizing Aspect. Damaging an injured enemy with a basic skill generates 5 energy. And lastly, we have a Ravenous Aspect. Killing a vulnerable enemy grants you 50% increased energy regeneration for 4 seconds. To wrap up the legendary aspects, we have the last utility one, which is Aspect of Explosive Verve. Your grenade skills count as trap skills, and whenever you arm a trap or drop grenades, you gain 10% increased movement speed for 3 seconds. To wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen, if you love being in and out of combat, dashing in fast and quick, with a class that has a high skill cap and crazy versatility, it's no doubt that this class is going to be your main choice. Rogues are agile fighters based mostly on dealing physical damage with melee and ranged attacks. In addition, they also have access to cold, shadow, and poison effect. Positioning and quick decision making play a huge role in rogue combat, and they have many tools for build customization to really fit your preferred playstyle. Energy is their primary resource, and it recovers slowly on its own, but can be refilled with multiple various effects. Now you know just about everything that we have been shown so far about the rogue. There's really only one question left to answer though. Is it for you? Let us know in the comment section below, as we would love to chat with you all. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. Until the very end, my name's Sky from the Comeback Kids, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace!